I know I probably should have gotten the actual physical copy of the book with, like, I don't know, pages. There's like this obsession. People who read are always like, nothing could ever replace the feeling of a good book, and thumbing through the pages, and it's like, yeah, that's true. But have you ever tried to carry War and Peace in a side bag? It's not a good look, and it's really heavy besides. Anyway, so the story I'm going to read you guys today is, well, it's pretty old. It's from the early 19th century. It is by O. Henry. Not the chocolate bar. Was it a chocolate bar? I think it was like a peanut bar. I'm getting ahead of myself. Oh my god. I don't even know why you clicked this video. Anyway, the story I'm going to read you today is called After 20 Years, and it's by O. Henry. After 20 years. The policeman on the beat moved up the avenue impressively. The impressiveness was habitual and not for show, for spectators were few. The time was barely 10 o'clock at night, but chilly gusts of wind and the taste of rain in them had nigh depeopled the streets. Trying doors as he went, twirling his club with many intricate and artful movements, turning now and then to catch his watchful eye down the Pacific thoroughfare, the officer, with his stalwart form and slight swagger, made a fine picture of a guardian of the peace. The vicinity was one that kept early hours. Now and then you might see the lights of a cigar store or of an all-night lunch counter, but the majority of the doors belonged to the business places that had long since closed. When about midway of a certain block, the policeman suddenly slowed his walk. In the doorway of a darkened hardware store, a man leaned, with an unlit cigar in his mouth. As the policeman walked up to him, the man spoke up quickly. "It's all right, officer," he said reassuringly. "I'm just waiting for a friend. It's an appointment made 20 years ago. Sounds a little funny to you, doesn't it? Well, I'll explain if you'd like to make certain it's all straight. About that long ago, there used to be a restaurant where this store stands. Big Joe Brady's restaurant. Until 5 years ago," said the policeman. "It was torn down back then." The man in the doorway struck a match and lit his cigar. The light showed a pale, square-jawed face with keen eyes and a little white scar near his right eyebrow. His scarf pin was a large diamond, but very oddly set. 20 years ago tonight," said the man, "I dined here at Big Joe Brady's with Jimmy Wells, my best chum, and the finest chap in the world. He and I were raised here in New York, just like two brothers, together. I was 18, and Jimmy was 20. The next morning I was to set west to seek my fortune. You couldn't have dragged Jimmy out of New York. He thought it was the only place on earth. Well, we agreed that night that we would meet here again exactly 20 years from that date, no matter what the conditions might be from, or from what distance we had to come. We figured that in 20 years, each of us ought to have our destiny worked out, and our fortunes made, whatever they were going to be." "Sounds pretty interesting," says the policeman. "Rather a long time between meets, though, it seems to me. Haven't you heard from your best friend since you left?" "Not missing a beat." "Well, yes, for a time we corresponded," said the other, "but after a year or so we lost track of each other. You see, the West is a pretty big proposition, and I kept hustling around over it, pretty lively. I know Jimmy will meet me here if he's well and alive, and he was always the truest, staunchest chap that I knew, and in the world for that matter. He'll never forget. I've come 1,000 miles to stand up in this door tonight, and it's only worth it if he shows up." The waiting man pulled out a handsome watch, the lids of it set with small diamonds. 3 minutes to 10, he announced. It was exactly 10 o'clock when we parted the restaurant door. You did pretty well out west, didn't you? Asked the policeman. You bet. I hope Jimmy has done half as well. He was a kind of plotter, though. Good fellow he was. I've had to compete with some of the sharpest wits in the pile. A man gets his groove in New York, but it takes the West to put a razor edge on him. The policeman twirled his club and took a step or two. I'll be on my way. Hope your friend comes around tonight. Going to call him on the time sharp? I should say not, said the other. I'll give him half an hour at least. If Jimmy is alive on Earth, he'll be here by that time. So long, officer. Good night, sir, said the policeman, passing along on his beat, trying doors as he went. There was now a fine cold drizzle falling, and the wind had risen from its uncertain puffs into a steady blow. A few foot passengers astir in that quartered hurry, dismally and silently, along with coat collars turned high and pocketed hands. And in the door of the hardware store, the man who had come 1,000 miles to fill an appointment, uncertain almost to absurdity, with a friend of his youth, smoked his cigar and waited. About 20 minutes he waited, and then a tall man in a long overcoat, with collar turned up to his ears, hurried across the street. He went directly towards the waiting man. Is that you, Bob? He asked doubtfully. Is that you, Jimmy Wells? Cried the man in the door. Bless my heart, exclaimed the new arrival, grasping both each other's hands with his own. It's Bob, sure as fate. I was certain I'd find you here if you were still in existence. Well, 20 years is a long time. Old restaurant's gone, Bob. I wish it had lasted. Shall we go have dinner there, or how has the West treated you? Bully. It's given me everything I asked for. You've changed lots, Jimmy. I never thought you were so tall by 2 or 3 inches. Oh, I grew a bit after I was 20. Doing well in New York, Jimmy? Moderately. I have a position in one of the day city departments. Come on, Bob. We'll go around to a place I know of, and we'll have a good long talk about old times. The two men started up the street, arm in arm. The man from the West, his egotism enlarged by success, was beginning to outline the history of his career. The other, submerged in his own coat, just listened with interest. At the corner stood a drugstore, brilliant with electric lights. When it came into the glare of each of them, they turned simultaneously to gaze upon each other's face. The man from the West stopped abruptly and released his arm. You're not Jimmy Wells, he snapped. 20 years is a long time, but it's not long enough to change a man's nose from a Roman to a pug. Oh, it sometimes changes a good man into a bad one, said the tall man. You've been under arrest for 10 minutes, Silky Bob. Chicago thinks you may have dropped over our way and wires us. She wants to have a chat with you. Going quietly, are you? That's sensible. Now, before you go to the station, there's one note that I was asked to hand you. You may read it here at the window if you like. It's from Patrolman Wells. The man from the West unfolded the little piece of paper handed to him. His hand was steady when he began to read, but it trembled a little by the time he had finished. The note was rather short. It read, Bob, I was at the appointed place on time. When you struck the match to light your cigar, I saw it was the face of a man who was wanted in Chicago. Somehow, I couldn't bring you in myself. I couldn't do it. So I went around and I got a plainclothes man to do the job. Jimmy. Well, it's the kind of story that it's enjoyable to hear, even if it does have kind of a few plot holes. But, you know, there's only so many hours in the day. I like it. And I hope you liked it too. This has been a quick short story. My name is M.